folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I don't know how many times I've gotten on here in the last year to tell you about one more hit to the supply chain. It just seems like that it's just one right after another. If you remember back to that stuck ship over in the Suez Canal, remember how everyone was like, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It just seems like that started a cascading events that have led up to just a constant barrage of one thing after another, attacking the supply chain, dwindling it and chipping it down to where now empty shelves is pretty much a norm in America. We've been compared to, the 1980 Soviet Union by foreign media over in England of how America just isn't able to maintain the supply that we're used to here in our store shelves. Well, guess what, folks? If you haven't been paying attention, there's been one more really big one attacking the supply chain. As of January 22nd, just a few days ago, a new law is in place, and any truck driver crossing the United States and Canadian border and crossing the United States and Mexican border must have current, current ones. Not just the first one or the second one, but whatever the CDC determines as being currently boosted. And that goes for Canadian truck drivers coming into America, United States truck drivers going north, and the same way going south. And it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this is going to be not good. It's already playing havoc. Just in the last few days, reports are coming out that the cost of shipping goods has skyrocketed because there's just a lot less truck drivers. If you haven't been paying attention, Canadian truck drivers, they're pretty upset about it. And there's been reports as up to 50,000 trucks driving and doing blockades and protesting against this. And yet nothing is being done. They're just going to stick with it, apparently. And it's just going to continue to make things harder to get stuff to your shelf so that you can get the things that you need. Not only is it going to increase the shortages, but it's going to increase the cost of doing business. Already trucking companies in Canada are reporting. One company reported they do a refrigerated, the big reefer trucks, and they're saying just in the last few days, the cost of getting a reefer truck to get across the U.S. border has increased anywhere between 30 and 50%. And the cost of just getting a normal truck across the border has increased up to 25%. And that's just in the last few days. We're talking pretty big numbers when you look at how many truck drivers are going to be affected by this. American trucking, they estimate that only 50 to 60% of the drivers have this. And in Canada, it's anywhere between 70 and 90%. They're saying that it's not going to affect too much of Mexican truck drivers crossing the border because they have a pretty high, percentage of their drivers that have it. But the numbers are pretty scary. They're saying that out of truck drivers that regularly cross the U.S., Canadian, and Mexican border that will be affected by this, and this is including United States and Canadian truck drivers, that we're looking at numbers of anywhere between 25 and 40,000 truck drivers are no longer going to be able to cross the border. And this isn't a bad thing, but those truck drivers tend to be pretty stubborn, and they're flat out not doing it. And we're seeing, it's very beginning because this has just happened in the last few days, but we're seeing the beginning of a problem of just less stuff getting across the border and an increase in prices of the stuff that does get across the border because they're having to pay a premium because they can't get enough drivers to get things across the border. There's been a warning out on this for quite a while, that we've seen this coming. We've known it was coming. And both the Canadian Trucking Alliance and the American Trucking Association has been, doing everything they can to get this stopped. They've been lobbying different, government officials, trying to get them to stop this plan. And it is now officially in place. And it looks like that that we're going to start seeing some increase in prices. They're warning about produce. Hey, you people that I've been talking to about planting a garden, guess what? Your produce costs are going to go up because we get a lot of produce out of Mexico, and that could be affected. We also get a lot of food out of Canada. A lot of stuff comes across the Canadian border. They're talking things of like lobster and other seafood type items that would come across the Canadian border is going to go up in price. So I guess you better be prepping all of those, all of your seafood that you would import in. The amount of stuff that comes across the American and Canadian border is quite a lot. I don't think a lot of people think about that. We've been really focused on the shipping from China over in the California ports that's been backed up for months. And there's a lot of stuff that comes from China, but folks, we do a lot of trade with our neighbors to the north and south. And if you're telling a pretty good percentage of truck drivers that transport that stuff that they can't drive anymore, they can't run their rigs across the border because they aren't up to date on their paperwork, then that's going to put a big bind in our supply chain. This could also open the door for automated truck driving. It could be one of those things that's we're going to see a push for automated truck driving. I understand the technology isn't as much as it should be, but I would guess if there was a very dire need and a major motivation push, they could probably get something out a lot sooner than you think. That's what they want. They don't want human truck drivers. I think they want to switch us over to automated trucking. It's so much easier for them to control what's going on. There's no risks of trucker strikes, and which has always been a threat. Truckers have been threatening that since the 60s and 70s and have done it a few times. And because truck drivers know that they are one of the most essential and vital assets to America. You shut down the trucking industry and America will grind to a halt in about 3 days. So they know that. They know that it's a liability. And I think that could be one of the reasons why they're pushing for this so hard, because it really doesn't make any other sense with all the numbers that we're seeing across the world, really, of the decrease in case counts and the realization that the current variant is very, very mild. It doesn't make any sense that right now, with the situation of the supply chain, to put these kind of regulations in when they know it's going to have a very negative adverse effect on the supply chain as a whole. But they're not backing down. And we're seeing a lot less truckers being able to do their job and cross the border. And like I said, it's less stuff. Do we know the full effects yet? No, because it just got put into place. But like I said, in 3 days' time, the cost of doing goods, of getting a truck to go across the border has gone up in some areas as much as 25 to 50%. That's pretty significant in just the last few days. What will this be like in the next coming weeks? As things just start to build and build. I believe it was Forbes, or maybe it was Bloomberg, had an article on the fact that there's already just cargoes just sitting at the border waiting to get run across, but they don't have any truck drivers to do it because some of it's they're on strike, and other ones they're just not able to because they don't have the correct paperwork. So, folks, again, keep stocking up. Maybe look at some of the items that you would get that come across the border. You should probably start stocking up on those. I mean, food obviously is a big one, but there's a lot of parts for various items, car parts, other things like that come across the U.S.-Canadian border. This is not going to be a good thing. If we were dealing with a very strong, robust supply chain, and they came in and said 10 to 15% of your truck drivers are going to go away, we might be able to handle that okay. Maybe it would just be a little speed bump in the road. But, they're saying that potentially 10 to 15% overall of truck drivers that would cross the border aren't going to be able to cross. And that's a conservative number. It could be much higher. That's going to, have some pretty serious repercussions on the supply chain, because it's already just barely able. I mean, it's like it's being held up by the skin of its teeth, trying to maintain shipping across America, and the cost of everything has gone up so much. And then you take away 10 to 15% of that workforce. That's pretty bad. That's pretty devastating. And it's also interesting that nothing really is being talked about. You have to really dig. I mean, I really had to do a little digging to try to find some articles and information about this, because there's just not much out there. Everything is focused on Ukraine and the newest variant and what the president said to some reporter yesterday off the cuff, with a hot mic. So finding information like this is a little tough. And I think it's because they don't want people to know about it. They don't want people to panic because, until it's too late, basically, because they know it's going to be bad. So folks, get your houses in order, prepare mentally, physically, spiritually. We're going to start seeing it in even worse supply chain. So however bad it's been at your stores of trying to get stuff, expect to see the prices go up and the amount of stuff on the shelves to be less, because there's just less truckers now moving that stuff. All right, folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.